Solomon, more than a king, less than a god. Every king rules a land, but Solomon ruled something deeper. He ruled the unseen. Solomon's story is not just of political power or divine favor. It's about a man who stood between heaven and earth, decoding mysteries that others dared not touch. Born of King David and Bathsheba, his rise to power was already marked by divine whispers. But unlike other kings of Israel, Solomon wasn't known just for his rule. He became a symbol of divine human union. Was he merely a wise ruler, or did he unlock a deeper layer of consciousness? The stories surrounding Solomon speak of a man who conversed not only with prophets but with spirits. His wisdom wasn't limited to law or governance. It penetrated into the very structure of the universe. He spoke of the nature of the soul, the language of nature, the behavior of animals, and the structure of creation. This wasn't ordinary knowledge. This was sacred gnosis, knowledge once reserved for gods and angels. The ancient world was filled with mystery schools, secret societies, and esoteric teachings. Egypt had its priests, Babylon had its magi, and Greece had its philosophers. But Solomon, he was different. He absorbed all traditions and made them one. According to ancient writings, Solomon was trained in Egyptian magic, Chaldean astrology, and even the mystical names of God used by the angels themselves. He wasn't just using this knowledge, he was mastering it. Legends say Solomon wore a ring, the seal of Solomon engraved with a sacred name. This wasn't just a symbol of kingship, it was a device of control, communication, and command. With it he could bind demons, command jinn, speak to animals, and unlock the gates of hidden realms. Was this just myth? Or was it a coded message about the power of will, intention, and divine alignment? In esoteric traditions, Solomon represents more than a king. He represents the soul at the height of its development. A being who knows his own origin, who remembers his divine nature, who no longer separates the physical from the spiritual. That's why so many spiritual paths refer to Solomon as the master of the middle path, the one who stands in balance between heaven and earth, light and shadow, knowing and unknowing. His wisdom wasn't just practical, it was alchemical. In texts attributed to him, he speaks of transmutation, not just of metals but of the self, turning base desires into spiritual insight, turning conflict into harmony, turning chaos into divine order. And yet, for all his greatness, Solomon was still human. He loved, he lusted, he failed. He allowed foreign gods to enter his kingdom through marriages and alliances. He began to confuse divine knowledge with control. That fall from perfect balance to spiritual confusion is a lesson etched into his legacy. So was he more than a king? Absolutely. Was he a god? No. He was something far more terrifying and beautiful. He was a human who almost became divine, and that's what makes his story not only powerful, but dangerous. Because if Solomon could walk between the worlds, then maybe, just maybe, so can we. The temple that wasn't built for worship. It wasn't just a temple, it was a cosmic machine. The Temple of Solomon is one of the most iconic structures never fully understood. Described in vivid detail in biblical texts, it has been studied, imagined, reconstructed, and revered. But beneath its golden altars and sacred dimensions lies a secret rarely spoken aloud. This temple was never truly meant for worship. It was designed for something far deeper, more daring, communication with the divine and transformation of the self. At first glance, Solomon's temple appears to be a place for sacrifice and prayer. But if you look closely at its architecture, measurements, and rituals, a different pattern emerges. It follows principles found in sacred geometry, ancient Egyptian temples, and even megalithic structures. Every stone, every gate, every vessel was designed with mathematical precision, aligning with celestial movements and vibrational frequencies. Mystics have long claimed that the temple was a blueprint of the universe. Its layout mirrored the structure of the cosmos, and its inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies, was not just a sacred space, but a dimensional threshold. Only the high priest could enter, once a year, after intense purification. Why? Because it was believed this chamber was a portal. a gateway to the divine realm where the presence of God was not symbolic but literal. Solomon, deeply learned in esoteric traditions, didn't build a church. He built a receiver, a spiritual amplifier, a vessel through which celestial energies could be drawn down into the earthly plane. The rituals performed within were not just religious, they were alchemical, designed to transform consciousness, to connect the seen and unseen, to awaken the inner eye. The materials chosen for the temple, cedar from Lebanon, gold from Ophir, stones hewn in silence, weren't just for beauty. Each carried vibrational properties, each had symbolic meaning. Cedar represented immortality, gold symbolized divine light. The silence of the quarry, where no tool struck stone, symbolized the inner stillness needed for divine contact. Even the two pillars, Jachin and Boaz, weren't just structural. They represented polarity, balance, the masculine and feminine forces. Standing at the entrance, they served as energetic guardians. Those who entered passed between them, just as initiates pass through duality into unity. In many mystical traditions, Solomon's temple is considered the human body in architectural form. The outer court, the physical body, the holy place, the soul, the holy of holies, the spirit, or divine spark. Building the temple wasn't just a national project. It was a map for spiritual awakening, a process each human must undergo to build their own temple within. This understanding turns the entire narrative upside down. It wasn't about housing God. God doesn't live in buildings. It was about activating the divine potential in man. The temple was the stage, the rituals were the script, and the high priest was the actor in a divine drama meant to mirror cosmic truth. So why was it destroyed? Some say the time had passed. Others say humanity wasn't ready. Or maybe, just maybe, the knowledge was hidden, encoded in symbols, scattered across time, waiting for the few who would recognize the temple not as a monument, but as a manual for ascending into the divine self. What secrets did Solomon seal in stone? Some truths are too powerful to be spoken. They must be sealed in stone. Legends of King Solomon often drift into the realm of the fantastical, but within these tales lies a persistent thread, that Solomon possessed dangerous knowledge, truths so deep and potent that they couldn't be left to chance. So he sealed them, not in books, not in scrolls, but in stone. What kind of secrets require this level of protection? From ancient grimoires to hidden tunnels beneath Jerusalem, there are stories of Solomon using sacred geometry, star alignments, and coded language to trap spiritual entities and encrypt cosmic knowledge. The Seal of Solomon, often depicted as a hexagram, was not just a decorative sigil, it was a key, a cipher, a symbol that merged opposites, fire and water, spirit and matter, heaven and earth. Stonemasonry was not just construction, it was coding. The builders of Solomon's temple were said to be initiates, sworn to secrecy, using symbols and measurements to encode layers of knowledge into every arch, angle, and altar. This tradition would later inspire secret societies like the Freemasons, who believed Solomon was the first Grand Master, and that his temple was a repository of divine blueprints. Among the many secrets said to be hidden were the true name of God, the formulas for summoning and commanding spirits, maps of celestial gates, and the keys to divine transformation. These weren't just mythic concepts, they were operational knowledge, systems that, if misused, could destabilize spiritual order. It's believed that Solomon buried sacred objects beneath the temple. Some say it was the Ark of the Covenant. Others whisper of an even more potent relic, the Book of Raziel, a divine manuscript said to contain all wisdom, from the structure of atoms to the fate of souls. According to legend, Solomon used this book not just to gain wisdom, but to rewrite reality itself. But why seal such things in stone? Why not pass them on? Because not all wisdom liberates. Some enslaves, some awakens too early, some destroys the unready. Solomon knew that power without preparation leads to ruin. So he encoded, he encrypted, he hid. Like a master alchemist, he left behind clues, not for the masses, but for the seekers. for those willing to undergo the inner transformation needed to understand. Temples, tombs, ruins, they're not just archaeological sites, they are libraries, timeless vaults of spiritual technology. Solomon's seal wasn't meant to keep us out, it was meant to protect us until we were ready, until we evolved enough to open the seal not with tools, but with consciousness. The myth of Solomon sealing demons in jars and casting them into the sea is symbolic too. Demons represent our lower instincts, fears, untamed desires. Sealing them is not suppression, it's integration, it's mastery. That's the true secret. Solomon wasn't imprisoning others, he was mastering himself. So when we ask what did Solomon seal in stone, the answer may be closer than we think. Perhaps the real stone is our own soul, and the key to unlocking it lies not in archaeology, but in inner alchemy, in the courage to seek, in the wisdom to wait, and in the readiness to finally remember. Between myth and magic, who was the real Solomon? In the shadows of scripture and legend, King Solomon stands, not just as a ruler, but as a mystery veiled in layers of myth, magic, and mysticism. Solomon, son of David, is often remembered for his wisdom, his great temple, and his legendary riches. But what if the image we have of Solomon is only a piece of a much deeper esoteric puzzle? Across centuries, stories about him have stretched far beyond the pages of religious texts and into the realms of magic, alchemy, and the occult. The real Solomon seems to exist between two worlds, one of divine favor and one of hidden knowledge. Biblically, Solomon was the third king of Israel, ruling during a golden age of peace and prosperity. His wisdom was said to be unmatched. People traveled from distant lands to hear his judgments and teachings. But alongside this narrative is another version, less known, more mysterious. In this version, Solomon is a master magician, a commander of spirits, and a keeper of ancient secrets. The Talmud and Midrash tell stories of Solomon speaking with animals, understanding the language of trees, and even engaging with angels. In Islamic traditions, especially in the Quran, Solomon, or Suleiman, is granted command over the winds, the jinn, and even animals. His throne could be transported across great distances instantly, a detail that aligns with modern ideas of teleportation or metaphysical travel. But perhaps the most fascinating layers of Solomon's identity emerge in the grimoires and esoteric texts of the Middle Ages. In these works, such as the Key of Solomon and the Lemegeton, also known as the Lesser Key of Solomon, he appears as a powerful sorcerer who binds and commands 72 demons using sacred seals and divine names. These texts outline complex rituals, symbols, and incantations that claim to be derived directly from Solomon's own magical practices. Was Solomon a king who ruled with wisdom alone, or was he something more, a practitioner of sacred arts lost to time? The idea that he possessed secret knowledge passed down from ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, or even from angelic beings continues to inspire mystics and occultists today. His connection with the Temple of Jerusalem, built with sacred geometry and cosmic alignments, suggests an understanding far beyond architecture. Many believe it was not just a place of worship, but a portal or a device of spiritual power. Then there's the mysterious legend of the shamir, a mythical worm or tool that could cut the hardest stone without touching it. It's said Solomon used the shamir to build the temple without using metal tools, in accordance with divine instructions. The nature of this tool suggests advanced technology or spiritual science beyond our comprehension. In essence, the real Solomon may have been a bridge between heaven and earth, wisdom and power, king and magician. His story continues to fascinate because it suggests that the ancient world held secrets that were not merely religious, but cosmic and universal. The more we examine his life, the more it seems that Solomon was not just a ruler of men, but a ruler of mysteries, and perhaps even today, the echoes of his magical legacy still whisper to those willing to listen. How Solomon used geometry as a spell. When lines, angles, and circles become more than shapes, when they become keys to hidden dimensions, you enter the world Solomon knew intimately. Geometry, to King Solomon, was not just a tool for building, it was a sacred language, one that spoke directly to the universe. He didn't just use geometry to construct the temple. He used it to cast spells, unlock spiritual realms, and control unseen forces. To him, shapes were not only forms, but forces. Every line had power. Every figure had meaning. In esoteric traditions, sacred geometry is the belief that certain geometric shapes and proportions carry divine energy. The circle, the triangle, the square, and particularly the hexagram, all were seen as representations of deeper truths. Solomon's seal, often depicted as a six-pointed star, two interlocking triangles, is perhaps the most famous symbol of sacred geometry in mystical traditions. But it's more than just a symbol, it's a spell. This symbol, known today as the Star of David, wasn't always associated with Judaism. In earlier mystical systems, it represented the union of opposites, fire and water, male and female, heaven and earth. One triangle points up, the other down. It's a visual spell, a symbol of balance and harmony between dual forces. Solomon is said to have used this exact symbol in magical rituals, inscribing it on his ring, his throne, and temple structures. The reason? The geometric balance it represented was believed to resonate with the fabric of reality. To trace it was to command it. The arrangement of these shapes, infused with divine names and numerical patterns, could summon or repel spirits, open dimensional gateways, or provide protection. Even the Temple of Solomon itself was built with specific proportions based on numerical codes. The layout followed sacred ratios, possibly the golden ratio or pi, that appear throughout nature and the cosmos. These were not just aesthetic choices, they were magical acts. Every measurement was a prayer. Every proportion was an intention. Geometry also played a key role in Solomon's understanding of the cosmos. Ancient texts suggest he mapped the heavens and used star charts, not just for astronomy, but for astrology and magical timing. Aligning rituals with certain celestial events amplified their power. Geometry helped him connect heaven and earth. What's more, geometric sigils, unique shapes formed from magical alphabets and numerical correspondences, were central to the spells and seals attributed to Solomon. These sigils weren't random doodles, they were carefully calculated diagrams meant to tap into the unseen forces of the universe. Drawing a sigil was like dialing a phone number to another dimension. Even the floor patterns in Solomon's temple, according to some interpretations, acted as magical circuits, directing energy, focusing intention, and anchoring divine presence. The temple, in this view, wasn't just a building. It was a spell in stone, a massive geometric invocation. When you consider all this, it becomes clear that Solomon wasn't just a king or builder. He was an architect of the invisible. He used geometry as a bridge between the material and the spiritual. Every figure, every line was a note in the symphony of creation, and when placed together, they sang a song only the initiated could hear. Today, modern mystics, Freemasons, alchemists, and magicians still study Solomon's geometric legacy. Why? Because in those ancient shapes lies a blueprint, not just for buildings, but for consciousness itself.